Oh, man, this thing gets more incestual by the day. Welcome in. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. It's great to have you here on KCMO Talk Radio. I am just beside myself, wondering how and when this UAW strike is going to end, and hoping for those of you that work at the KCK GM plant and, of course, at the Clay Como Ford plant do not get impacted by this. I disagree vehemently with your leadership. But for those of you who are just working hard every day on the assembly line, trying to make a living, I feel for you here because I believe your leadership is taking you down the wrong path and is playing politics and is looking for the government to step in and get involved in this dispute between the United Auto Workers Union and GM, Ford, and Chrysler, now Stellantis. But Tim Scott, he's running for president. He's not going to be the nominee for the Republicans, but he made some very interesting comments that just caught my eye early this morning. And I wanted to share those with you and bring up a topic that nobody is talking about until I heard it from Tim Scott and then did some digging on this. When it comes to the politics of what are unfortunately going on here. So let's air this thing from Tim Scott. You got it lined up there, Mark. Let's play this from Tim Scott and then get into an angle on this strike that has not been brought up yet, at least not enough.
I think Ronald Reagan gave us a great example when federal employees decided they were going to strike. He said, you strike, you're fired. Simple concept to me. To the extent that we could use that once again, absolutely. The second thing I would do, though, is very important. This is probably not a well-known fact. The first thing, part of the challenge that we have today with President Biden is, and I don't mean this to be disingenuous, I mean this to be sincere. I'm not sure if the words are bought and paid for, but certainly he has been leased by the unions. And I say that because the first bill he passed, y'all remember the $1.9 trillion COVID relief package? Yeah. That only had 1% for COVID vaccines? It had $86 billion, I believe, for union pensions. Because they keep making these deals. And as a result of the deal, they promise too much, deliver too little, and the taxpayers pick up the tab.
So that was Tim Scott running for president, South Carolina U.S. Senator. And he says that at the end. He says, first off, you strike, you're fired. And, frankly, as far as I'm concerned, if you're a small business owner and somebody decides they don't want to work for you and they're not showing up to work, that's usually grounds for termination. And you know what? In a free market system, it should be. You don't like what you're doing, nobody's got a gun to your head, move on, make yourself more money in the free market, and everybody should be happy with that. But of course, in the politics of how unions work, that's never how it plays out. But Tim Scott brings up a very good point here. And I looked it up after I saw that clip. I said, gosh, I gotta find that because I don't really remember that. And here it is. This is written in CNBC, December of 2022, so 9 months ago. And if you're a worker in Clay Como or at the KCK plant, I know you probably have not liked my thoughts on this the last week, but sorry. I mean, part of the job here is to come in, share the news with you, and have an opinion on it. And I don't have any sympathy for the union mobsters in this case. I don't. I think they're getting offered a fair deal by Ford and GM and the others when you're getting a 20+% raise. In this environment, in this climate, that's a pretty damn good deal. And already your labor costs at those three Detroit automakers are 50% higher than Honda and Kia and Tesla and places like that. You got to stay competitive in the marketplace. And your labor costs are already 50% higher, only going to go 60, 70% higher than your competitors. That's a concern. You can only do so much. And I think there's a fair deal on the table, and this is all very much avoidable. But for those who think that pensions should go back to the way they were pre-2008, 2009, let's remind you how bad the business is of pensions. If you run a business and you have pensions, you don't really know how to budget for those things, right? Because you don't know who's dying, who's living. You can't really budget for pensions in a future fiscal year. How do you do it? You don't know how much you're paying. I mean, you can ballpark it, but you don't really know how much you're paying out every year in a pension. That's why pensions went by the wayside. It was just bad business. 401ks make a heck of a lot more sense. You're matching people when they're on your payroll. You can budget for a 401k match. You can't do it for lifetime pensions, and they don't work. So go back to December of 2022, last year. The president took $36 billion from the American Rescue Plan. You remember that? $1.9 trillion corona relief package, supposedly tied to COVID, but it mostly wasn't. And it helped spearhead, of course, inflation as well. He took $36 billion from that, and he gave it to the Teamsters Union. 350,000 Teamster workers and retirees across the United States got $36 billion to shore up financial troubles for these union pension plans. He just, $1.9 trillion, he took $36 billion of your money as a taxpayer, and it got handed over to the Teamsters Union because these pensions are underfunded and they're failures and they don't work. And it really didn't, and I don't really remember covering it at the time. I fully admit, I don't remember this being a big deal. I don't remember it getting a lot of attention. I don't really remember covering the story. Because at that point, a billion here, a billion there, nobody could keep track of any of this money anyway. So it just kind of all went by the wayside. And, he's giving $36 billion to the Teamsters Union. Whatever. But it's relevant today because of the debate that's happening with the UAW and the Big Three in Detroit. And some believe that the UAW, led by Shawn Fain, want to bring back the pension plans to the way they were 15 years ago. And that is an insane request. We already bailed you guys out as a taxpayer 15 years ago. The pension plans don't work. They're failures in the free market. The only way they work is if you're talking about the government, right? That's the only way that it works because they can just keep, in the federal level, keep printing money and take whenever they want and giving it to whoever they want. But in the real world, the pension system doesn't work. And this is a prime example. When the Teamsters Union last year was getting $36 billion of our taxpayer monies because they're underfunded, that tells you all you need to know. And last week it was the Teamsters Union put out a press release saying they stand with the UAW for a fair contract at the Big Three automakers. These guys are all in bed together. They're in bed together, and secretly what they want to have happen is they want the government to get involved and help take care of them. And then you, the worker at Clay Como or in KCK at the Fairfax plant, you end up potentially getting hosed here in all this. They may ask you to strike come Friday. That's what Shawn Fain said yesterday. He said, you know what, if we don't get what we want by the end of the week, we're going to have other plants strike. You might be on that list. And I'm sympathetic to the fact that, some of you feel like you want to make more money. But I hope you would also understand that the rest of us don't feel like paying for your pensions. That's not our job. I'm not asking you to pay my pension. So I don't have one, by the way. But I wouldn't ask you to pay my salary, my benefits. So don't ask me to pay yours. And that's how it's going to end. They're going to try to get politicians involved here. They're going to specifically one side of the political aisle that's theoretically sympathetic to unions. They're going to try to get them involved to bail this entire process out. And who's going to pay for it? We're going to pay for it. And I don't have any interest in paying for it, and neither should you.